Right now my schedule on beetle swap is once a week. Every week we separate the beetles from the substrate and we put the substrate back in the tray it came in, put the beetles in fresh bran substrate, and then start the timer and do it again in a week. So that's what I do now. What I've done in the past, and honestly what I do shouldn't be what you do, because it really just depends on your goals, your time, and what works best for you. When I first started back in 2017 just for fun, I was doing it every 2 to 4 weeks. When I got into the business in 2018, the on-the-side business, legitimately selling it as a business in 2018, I did it every 2 weeks. And then as things progressed forward and I got help, I hired help, I did it every week. And so what I found is that consistency is key. So whether you do it every week or every 4 weeks, do it consistently so that you have a consistent result out of that. Meaning, like right now, we do it every week. And so every week we have a beetle swap. Every week we have a big harvest from trays that were beetle swapped months earlier. Every week we have second and third harvest from those first harvest trays that needed just a little bit more time to grow, that might have had some smaller ones in there for some reason, which is normal and it happens. Every week we have beetle collection. Every week we have pupa collection and hydration. And so we're staying on a consistent schedule, and by having beetle swaps every week, I can be more predictive around my inventory and what I'm going to have available, and know that I will have more mealworms coming, so that I can do things like subscriptions, have wholesale customers that can depend on me for inventory, that sort of thing. But again, honestly, do what works best for you first, and then find ways to fill that in. As far as the mesh bottoms, I'm super frustrated with them right now. I'm not using them at the moment. I just started another trial run with 5 of them. I bought a whole bunch of them, and I'm just frustrated. I can't figure out how to get them to work. So the mesh bottom sits down on the substrate. If you elevate it above, they will not lay eggs. So the scenarios where you see real small hobbyists who will have a mesh tray sitting above another tray, and there's a gap between the mesh and the substrate. What's happening there is the eggs are not falling, on purpose anyway. Like, they might fall, but the eggs are bigger than the baby mealworms when they hatch. And usually what's happening is the eggs are just up in there with the beetles on top of the mesh or in the corners, wherever they're laid on the substrate. Then the mealworms hatch and the mealworms crawl down and fall. I'm not saying that doesn't work. That does work. It's perfectly fine for a very small volume, low production scenario. If you've got a few reptiles, or you can set up a bunch of those and get, obviously more mealworms. But the more efficient method is to put the mesh on the substrate. I just can't find a way to get the mesh bottoms to work in the beacon camp trays in a consistent manner. And so I'm just frustrated in general. A lot of it has to do with the volume of substrate, the volume of eggs, the beetle quantity, the egg production, volume of eggs. And so it's just a matter of trying to find that sweet spot for what I need and what works for our schedules and our processes. And I'm very frustrated with it. So that's as much as I want to say without throwing in some words that I probably shouldn't at the end of a long day. But the mesh method is what a lot of the big producers are using. It does keep the male beetles from cannibalizing the eggs. And so without the male beetles cannibalizing the eggs, you're going to have more egg production, more eggs surviving, and so more mealworms as a result. You just have to get the balance right for everything else, environmentally, in the tray, etc. So hopefully I get that figured out, because that is one thing I want to improve, not only just from a labor perspective. Honestly, we have it down pretty good now, so it doesn't take but a couple hours to do 180 trays with 2 people, so 4 hours total. But what I would like to be able to do is cut down the dust. Moving those trays around and swapping and sifting, it's a lot of dust. And so I want to cut that down quite a bit. And by using the mesh bottoms, I think we can get to a much better place with that. That would be one of the main things that is driving me to use the mesh bottoms. Production's good otherwise. I think the weekly swap really helps that, along with a lot of good hydration. And so we do that 3 times a week to keep the beetles hydrated so that they're not cannibalizing as much. They still will. I'm still losing some, but it's not a terrible amount. I still have a whole boatload of mealworms coming out of the trays every week.